Today's event is entitled the St. Louis Surge, and it's by Asthma Ready Communities out of the University of Missouri. And we are serving mostly African American families in the St. Louis City and County area. We're attempting to reach those people who wouldn't get reached otherwise. But asthma is a big thing in the city of St. Louis because so many kids have asthma and so many kids suffer from asthma needlessly because they're not getting their medications and they're not getting follow-up treatment. That's the main thing, getting your medication, follow-up treatment, and knowing what to do before you have that asthma attack, before you call 911. If you know all of the steps prior to that, a lot of times that can save a child's life. Because we've had children in this city that have died from asthma attacks, which is needless.
So we know that the environment makes a difference, and I think that that's probably one of the larger challenges is the environment and the context with which people live. The second larger issue is poverty. Families that live in conditions that are less than optimal have a lot of challenges that many of us may not understand, and those things impact the choices that they make about medications, about what they prioritize in their kids' day, about the quality of the life that their children have.
So the target that we were looking for today were children between the ages of 5 and 14, predominantly African American, and they come from all walks of life. Some of them were encountered through the ER, some were encountered through some of the community partners, some were encountered through some of the health centers, word of mouth. So it really just depends on who their contact was, on how they got here. But we all knew who our target market was. Today is helpful to a family because although they've maybe been diagnosed with asthma or been introduced to it, it really takes a lot of time to really sit down and get it. Because when you are told that your child has asthma, asthma is a chronic condition. It doesn't go away. So, and as the child grows, their medications may change. And so you never know if somebody was diagnosed when they were 6 and they brought an 11-year-old, their disease may look a little different now. So maybe they're relearning how to manage it.
We think that today's event, although we wish we could have this every week in a sense, because one of the things that all of us who are participating today agree on is that the families who have to live with chronic asthma do not get enough one-on-one time to learn about how to take care of the asthma. They don't know the difference between the red inhaler and the orange inhaler. They don't understand why they don't feel better when they take the orange one. It's the red one that makes me feel good, but that's the one that's really not good for you to take every day. That's just an emergency. So it's really good, and they don't even have good technique on knowing how to use the inhaler. So today is special for all of the groups in our asthma community to come together and help each other provide that service for the families today. So it's really a comprehensive approach that I think healthcare should provide all the time. But the legislation that we're pursuing right now is to have a huge impact by having home assessments for these families and following that with asthma education to be billable and reimbursable to our physicians' offices and to the hospitals if they provide asthma education.
Today was helpful because this event is in a setting where community and families come together naturally. We are not in a clinical setting. We are in a community organization that's passionate about this community. And so that's the first difference that we're making, is that they're comfortable coming to a location and a place where people look like them, where people are communicating information in a way that makes sense, using principles and values that we all believe in. And second, it's evidence-based. So you can have evidence-based practice that's communicated in a way where families can understand regardless of their socioeconomic status or regardless of the issue that's prevalent in their lives. They get it. They want to get it. These are parents who are concerned about their kids, and they want to make sure that they are doing the best that they can to raise their children as healthy as they can be.
This is a wonderful program, wonderful opportunity, because they get checkups where they actually get to see someone medical, and they talk about their breathing and how it's doing today and their medication usage. If they're using albuterol just as, because it's something we do. If they're actually checking their peak flows, if they're actually doing any of the things that their doctor prescribed for them. And there are a lot of them who haven't been to the doctor to start with, to actually find out what's happening. They go to the ER and that's it. And they never go back again until it's time to go back to the ER. So we have a lot of that going on, and it's a good thing that this is happening today because they're getting education. They get to have a movie that's kid-friendly movie that actually shows them about using their peak flow. It's about using their inhaler correctly, because a lot of kids just use the inhaler. They don't use a spacer. So therefore, they're just getting their medication in the back of their throat instead of down their lungs. It teaches them about actually seeing what happens when you don't use your inhaler correctly. We're also teaching them games, where they're playing games on how to blow cotton balls and do limbo. They're playing with exercise balls. They're jumping rope. These kids are really having fun. So this is an activity that should be repeated, and it's a great opportunity for the community to come together.
But at the heart of it is a clinical person who's going to sit down with an individual child and is going to assess that child. And the assessments are really well structured, and they're directly from the national guidelines for caring for kids with asthma. So we used, in a session at a table with one child and one parent, we asked them if they were impaired, and this series of questions are validated. They're designed by the American Academy of Pediatrics. 5 simple questions that get at the fact that a child's breathing may be so abnormal that they're hampered in everyday activities like sleeping or running and playing. The other unique thing is that at that table we also measure the FEV1, or the amount of air in liters that a child's able to exhale. And we did that because when you get an objective measure of airflow, you often get the strongest evidence that asthma is either well controlled or not well controlled. And today was no exception. We actually found children who were only moving 55% of the expected air and who thought they were doing okay. They recognized they had asthma, they were occasionally using albuterol, but had no idea how impaired they were. And certainly after today's visit, a lot of effort will go into ensuring that they get care from a clinician to address what really amounts to very severe disease.
Well, today I came in to do music, and I came in to do music that is asthma focused, music that teaches the national guidelines for asthma management as set by the NHLBI. We want to make sure that people are getting the proper information. And we figured that the best delivery was the delivery from the universal communicator, which is music.
C-O-N-T-R-O-L, control. Can you get with this? If you want to stay on top of your game, you got to understand the name of the game. It's control. C-O-N-T-R-O-L, control. Can you get with this?
When we take music and attach an educational message to it, it's one of those under the radar things that we use to get the message of asthma control, asthma management into their heads. And just the repetition of listening to the music cements that idea in their heads.
The reason that I'm here is because some kids have asthma, and it's very hard for them to breathe at certain times. And if they don't get the special treatment they'll need, they'll have severe incidents with their lungs. When I have hard time to breathe, it's like my chest has too much air in it, and my lungs can't keep up with my chest because it's going too fast.
Do you think that's an early warning sign for your asthma? A symptom of your asthma? Meaning you need to take your medicine? Or it has nothing to do with your asthma?
It has nothing.
Yes, so you'll click on this one.
Some of the children here today have no medical insurance, and therefore any medications are a burden on the family. And we had Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America here today who could sign them up for Project Concern that provides medications and assistance for the cost that are necessary to treat asthma. We also had on site the Integrated Health Network, who works with all of the clinics in town who are safety net providers, including the county health, the city health departments, the federally qualified health centers, and other clinics who have that direct connection between a medical home that this family may need to get connected to.
But I think the thing here is to create an atmosphere of trust. And that's exactly what we were doing by letting them play, by letting the parents see, well, this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to help my child. And at the same time, when they have to take the child to the emergency room, more times often than not, they're scared because they're not understanding what's going on, why is it going on. But today, they were given the opportunity to go through a door that's going to allow them to understand what happens during an asthma attack, and even more important, what can you do in a proactive sense so that it doesn't happen, so that I don't have to get up at 2 in the morning and take this child to the emergency room. So it's important stuff, but at the same time, it all goes back to that trust factor.
There are families here today that only get emergency room treatment. What happens is the child has an asthma exacerbation, and boom, we're in the ER. They get a treatment, they wind up staying overnight, or they wind up staying a few days because they're having such a hard time breathing, and then they're sent back home, and they don't go back to the doctor, or they don't follow up with medical advice, and then they're back in the ER a couple weeks later. So we've got some of those kids here today, which I've heard a lot of parents say, wow, this is really interesting. I've learned something. And that's a joy to me because that's something you don't hear a lot of. You know, the parent actually is learning with the child side by side, and I love it.
Well, we are at the place in our region where, and this is not the unprecedented part. What's normal is that we have data and we understand it's an issue. What is unusual and unprecedented is immediate call to action across the region, across public health, across community health providers, with families, not to families or for them, but in partnership with families and their children, addressing this issue specifically and making it successful to the extent that we have 60 to 70 individuals coming out to do this work. That's incredible and it's unprecedented.
This is a result of a number of key partners who have a good grasp of the community we're trying to serve. And we understand that it's not easy to get to doctor's appointments on a Monday to Friday basis. We know that there's transportation problems, there's difficulty getting kids out of school. And so today is it's a Saturday event. It's at a family center, not a clinic, but at sort of a place that invites looking at asthma from a different lens, a different perspective. It's exciting that St. Louis organizations led this and others came in to help. So the Asthma Ready community partners came from Kansas City, from Kennett, Missouri, from Washington. And so it's a great event when you think of it in terms of we're all coming together to sort of mount an attack against asthma, which is causing enormous suffering among children in Missouri, particularly in high-risk communities like St. Louis. And so being here in the community, bringing parents in who might not normally be at a doctor's appointment has a lot of value.